Hello everyone and welcome to another video with me, 320 Sim Pilot. I'm a real-world airline pilot. I've spent many thousands of hours flying the A320 around the skies. So in today's video, I'm excited to show you the new Winwing Throttle Metal. So this is the Ursa Minor 32 Throttle Metal and the 32 PAC or PAC Metal. So this is the throttle quadrant at the top and then the speed brake, parking brake and flat lever at the bottom. So I'm going to show you what you get in the box and plug them into the simulator, and we'll have a look at them in this video, and I'll show you some in-sim use as well, of course, and give you my experience of how it compares to the real aircraft and what I was expecting from these products. So yeah, very exciting to see some more Airbus style hardware come onto the market. So yeah, this is what I'll do in today's video. So we're going to start off with just the throttle quadrant itself. So this section on its own that you see in front of you is the Ursa Minor 32 Throttle Metal. So there's two different products here. You got to make sure we get them the right way around, and this is what it looks like, and it is yeah, it's a really interesting thing. It's so cool to see some more of these sorts of devices coming onto the market. So I'll put my hand on it here and you'll see the size of it. So it's a fairly good size. It's still not full size, certainly that base section isn't, but the actual throttle handles themselves may well be, or they're very close to it. So this is the side-on profile. You can see below my hands there is metal. That's all metal, and that runs up into it in certain places as well, which gives it a very substantial, heavy feeling. It does feel nice. It's got anti-slip feet on there, and you can also fit some additional ones that it does come with as well. So there you go. So it feels very robust. You know, there's no flex when I move it around by the throttles or anything like that, or thrust levers, I should call them. You'll notice there's no markings on the engine master switches. That comes later. I haven't fitted them yet. But there you go. There's that metal sort of base that it's all screwed down onto, which gives it a really nice weighty feeling. At the front here, there's a warning note about how not to damage it, and also what that little on-off switch does, which is that enables you to put the detents on or off. So just one switch and you can turn them off. Again, we'll see that a bit later on in the video as well. Like I say, in this video, I will take you through the outside of all these bits and then also in the simulator. So here's the reversers in action. They're longer levers than I've had on my previous Thrustmaster TCA pack. And you can see that they actually have to be nudged forward back down before you can move it into the forward range of the thrust levers. So that's really great to see. Those are the detents. So the detents I have active here. And crucially, the friction is really good throughout the entire range. You can actually adjust the friction, which we'll also talk about very shortly. But here's those reverse levers working. So they sort of click down and then forwards. They will not activate in the forward range, just like the real aircraft. And what's really great is that they actually have a bit of an issue, just like the real aircraft, where you can accidentally, or you can struggle to get them to stow, and you have to sort of push them down manually, which can happen on the real aircraft due to the way the mechanism's set up. You've also got those red auto throttle disconnect buttons I was just pressing there, which are really nice and springy. They're really deep. You have to press them quite a long way, and they're quite forceful, so you can't do it by accident. They are pretty good. They feel great, actually, really nice. So there you go, that's the range, and you can see it has these friction sliders on the bottom front. So for each throttle, you can adjust how much friction you want. So if you loosen it all the way up, you actually have a very completely loose throttle. It shipped or it arrived at my house with a fairly good resistance. I didn't really feel like I needed to change it at all. So that's it sort of at maximum, and it's really heavy actually at maximum. You don't need it that much, and then you can go quite loose where it will just be really easy, and it'll sort of flop forward and backwards. Which is not nice at all. But yeah, it's the main feature, the standout feature of this throttle for me is the weight and smoothness of the action as you move it with the correct friction set. So there's those detents. They clunk in really nicely as well. I don't know how they've done it, but those detents feel just as nice as the real aircraft ones. But then you push that switch, you've got to be careful with your fingers when you do, it's quite stiff, and they are gone. The detents are gone. You have smooth action if you want to use this for another aircraft. It is just a controller. You can assign it to any airplane you fancy, but of course it's going to be really good for working with an Airbus aircraft. But yeah, and you can just flick that switch and back in. So I love that. And again, I can't express how good those detents feel to me. The resistance and the movement of those throttles and those detents all feels absolutely lovely. Very similar to the real aircraft. And there's even that little indicator in the middle, which is an engineering function, but the pilots never look at that. But there it is. Yeah, it's all modelled, which is really great. And then on the outside, you have the little marker which they use to line up. The real aircraft, funnily enough, it doesn't always line up perfectly, but it needs to be in that range. And yeah, this one, of course, is perfect. And there's that reverse action. Like I say, reversers, they feel great. And then to push it forward, you have to really push it through, but it's the exact same motion as I'm used to on the real aircraft, so that's quite amazing. Here's the sort of lower section of the throttle quadrant with the engine master switch panel. You've got this little ignition switch. This is actually my least favorite part of this this product. It's a little bit cheap and light and small compared to everything else that's such a good size. These are the two buttons. They're fire lights and fault lights. However, they aren't clickable in the real aircraft, but they are in this, much like they were on the Thrustmaster TCA. And that ignition switch is clickable too. I don't know why, but there you go. These master switches, however, are much more exciting. Look at that metal inside of them, and you have to lift them up and over the latch, so you cannot accidentally push it backwards or forwards. Just like the real aircraft, they feel the same size, they action the same way. I'm super impressed with how nice these feel. So you have to lift them up and clunk them over. It's a great feeling. In the real aircraft, you can feel like the solenoid or something activate beneath it, but this is as close as you're going to get on a home simulator from a sort of a standard product to be purchased. I would have thought ready-made. They feel absolutely brilliant. I really like those, and like I say, you cannot flick them forward or backwards accidentally. So the package on the left here is what you get with the throttle. So this includes some more anti-stick sort of stickers. Sorry, my first officer's helping out there, which go in those sort of spaces underneath. And it also includes the engine master switch decals. So whether you want it to be 1, 2, 3, or 4, because you might connect 2 of these together for 4 engines. This cable package comes with the 32 PAC, which we're going to see in a second. But as you can see, there's the USB-C port on the bottom. That cable is also included with the throttle quadrant. That's a USB-C data cable. It goes from there into your USB-A into your computer. And then there's the other port, which takes the data from your 32 PAC. So like I say, this data cable is included with your throttle. But the great thing is the add-on panel, the 32 PAC, does not require an extra data cable. It just all goes through one USB-C to USB-A. So here it is. This is the exciting bit as well. I think this is very exciting. This is the 32 PAC metal. I'm not sure whether they call it PAC metal or PAC, but there it is. And it includes a speed brake, rudder trim control, a parking brake, and flap lever. And it's a little more than you would imagine. It's really quite impressive what's been achieved here. And again, there's some bits I like a lot. Some bits are sort of, I think, let down by comparison to the bits that are next to them, and we'll see what. But there you go. It all came connected like this with those metal bars. Those metal bars that stick out the top stick into the bottom of the throttle quadrant, and then you can actually screw them in to hold them in place. But there it is. It has already been connected, 2 little connectors to take the 2 switches into the main bit. You can extend them out. As you saw in that little cable packet, comes with some extension cables as well as the cable that connects this into the throttle quadrant. So on the left, I've got the speed brake lever, of course. This is set up where you have to push it down before you can move it back. It won't push backwards until you've actually depressed it, just like the real aircraft. I think that's a really great feature. It also has a detent at the halfway point, just like the real aircraft. So you have to push it down, and then if you just aren't looking at it, you can feel when you hit the halfway point and then sort of push straight through that if you want. You can adjust the resistance on this as well, but I found no need to. I quite like it as it came out of the box. Again, really nice resistance. There's a metal core to that, and as you can see there, you can lift it up to arm the ground spoilers. However, there is no specific switch, so that's more symbolic. When you lift it up like that, it doesn't actually do anything in terms of the system. So better, I'll talk about how that's been got around later on actually. But yeah, so in the real aircraft, you could lift it up to arm the ground spoilers. In this basically in the forward position, they're already armed, but you can lift it up mechanically like that. But yeah, very nice resistance, and it's great having that halfway detent as well, and it's great having to push it down to move it back. Moving on to the rudder trim, you can see here pressing the reset button takes a big press. It's a serious button to press. You can't do it by accident, and here's the rudder trim. It's important you can't do it by accident, because in the real aircraft, if you have an engine failure and you need rudder trim in, it could be very critical to your performance. But the rudder trim switch feels really nice. It's a good size. The real aircraft has a very big rudder trim switch, and this one is suitable, and it's the right shape. It feels really nice. And then a little screen to show you the units. However, I've not got that fully working. It does light up, so it's all operating fine. It's just the software talking to the simulator I've not managed myself yet. Here's the parking brake. This feels a little bit flimsy compared to some of the other switches, a bit like that ignition switch on the throttle. It's a bit thin and a little bit plasticky, but crucially, you do have to lift it up to turn it, just like you do on the real airplane. I think on the real airplane you have to lift it a bit more than this to turn it. I can't tell you exactly because I haven't flown it for a little while now, but you do have to make that same action. So that's really great to see. But like I say, just a little bit light and plasticky, but the action itself is really great. Then you have the flap lever. Now this is a fantastic bit of engineering. This has the actual panel that you have to lift up underneath, as you can see there, to move it. This is not something I've seen before in any of the hardware I've had in my home flight simulator. So you lift it up and move it down to each stage. Now that's been modeled correctly, and the travel's nice as well. The material of the actual lever is slightly different to the real aircraft, but I would expect that, of course. It still feels nice. It's good quality with metal inside of it. but you can see there that I have to lift it up, and then if I want to travel all the way through like that, it won't let me. It blocks you when you go through the 3 gate and the 1 gate, as you see here. There's a reason for that. It's so that you can't accidentally try and retract the slats when you're not supposed to. So if you were to lift that flap lever and slip or whatever, or get distracted and move it too far, it will block you. And that's a mechanical built-in aspect of it. And that's something I'll talk about a bit later on. And you can actually see inside there the metal that does that. But yeah, it feels so similar, and the action of that lever on the bottom feels so similar to the real aircraft. I honestly couldn't tell you if it's the same size or not, but it feels remarkably similar. But there you go, you can see how they've done it, and that's absolutely crucial that it has that block out that stops you going from 2 to 0 by accident, especially on takeoff, of course. It's very, very impressive, and it feels great to use, and I love the attention to detail on it. This, by the way, is the joystick they've also sent over. I'll be talking about in another video. This is the Ursa Minor airliner throttle joystick, side stick, and you can see here it has dampening just like the real Airbus side stick does. I absolutely love that. That is something I've again not seen until I've had this first home simulator where I've had it. So I'm really excited to talk about that one in a future video. But for now, we're focusing on the Ursa Minor 32 metal throttle and 32 PAC. So here's the underside. Once I connect it all together, you can see this data cable that came with it, that connects through there, and they've done it at 90 degrees. So that's the throttle connected to your little extra panel, the 32 PAC, and then your USB-C is the only thing that has to plug into your computer. Plugs in there, again included with a 90-degree cable, which is great. That brings out all the backlighting. Excuse my awful filming here. And also, if you ever intend to make YouTube videos, do not get a black desk mat. It's impossible to keep clean. But there it is, lit up with the backlighting. And I've put the Engine Master 1 and 2 switches on, of course, because that's what I am going to use it for. And there it is. The lighting's very strong, actually. It gives a nice strong glow. You can actually adjust that in the software, which I'll show you in just a moment. But there it is. I cannot get enough of these throttles. Oh, there's me demonstrating you can't pull up the reversers in flight, or when the thrust lever is not at idle. Not something I've ever tried in the real airplane. I didn't know it was a feature. But yeah, there you go. This is the main panel all lit up, and you can see that LCD display for the rudder trim as well. And there's those flaps again. Yeah, it's really great. Now here's how you can set it up onto your desk directly. I didn't screw this in or have any sort of actual mount. All I've got here is the set hanging off the desk, and with the weight of the throttles that holds the front down, means that you can use that panel on the bottom even though it's overhanging. Of course, if you're serious, you can mount this. There's lots of mounting points to put it onto your own home cockpit, but this is how I'm going to have it because I'm not going to build a home cockpit. But there you go. You can move those bits just fine. The only wobble comes from the speed brake lever, but actually the throttles, even though they're quite weighty, work really nicely because that metal base, they actually work really well, and you can push them around even better with this panel attached to the bottom because it keeps the back of the unit down and stops it sliding forwards, so you can go forward to toga. So if you're doing an aggressive wind shear escape, you could be quite confident doing it. All the other switches work just fine, but yeah, the only one is the speed brake. You have to be a little careful pushing the speed brake down. There's a little wobble as you do that. But again, that's the way I have it set up. Now here's the Thrustmaster TCA Captain's Pack. So this is what I've used for years now. Since it came out, I've had this. And this is just a bit of a comparison between the two. You can see the different colours and so on. Now this is obviously licensed by Airbus, this Thrustmaster one. And you can see some of the differences. The big one being the flap lever. It's smaller, it's more symbolic. It doesn't have any of the action, including the lockout mechanism. Same for the speed brake. The throttles are smaller, the reverse levers are smaller. It does have the detents, of course, but you have to sort of... it's a little harder to move them, turn them on and off. You've got to unscrew things on the bottom. But this is just showing you sort of as comparison next to my hand, the size differences. Also, the master switches on this, you can just flick forward, back and backwards. The only switch that feels remotely similar, frankly, is that ignition switch. But those throttles and the friction on them is really quite something. It's really sublime. Very, very nice indeed. And that flap lever is much bigger and has the correct action, which is a curse and a blessing, depending how much you're focusing just on flying the Airbus. Speed brake lever, there you go, there's that wobble. You've got to be a little bit careful. It's not a problem, it's still totally usable, but you do have to watch out for it. But that's very different to the Thrustmaster one as well, which just is a single action, just slides along, no detents, no having to depress it first or anything like that. So there we go, here's a lighting adjustment. You can obviously do that granularly. I've got it full brightness, why wouldn't you? I want it lit up, there's a backlight. It looks great, very little bleed, and it just glows in a really nice sort of Airbus orangey colour, so I do like that a lot. And it's on all the sort of the right bits. And there's a screen. You can do the screen separately, the little rudder trim indicator screen. And finally, if I get it right, there you go, there's the main panel the throttle quadrant doing the throttle lighting, and then there's the fire fault lights that you can turn on and off as well. Again, I have not yet managed to get that to sync with the simulator. I have been trying and will continue to try, but it's not a major concern for me as it stands. I don't actually spend much time doing emergencies in my home simulator. I don't find it to be particularly reliable in comparison to the real aircraft, and that's not a criticism of any developer. That what I mean by that is that the real training procedures in aircraft get updated so often, you've got to be very careful. But there we go. So it has all those lights working, and there is a vibration motor in each throttle, which I have not used. So the vibration motors are something that I have checked. They work. They do work out of the box using the Winwing software, SimApp Pro, but I have not been able to get the aircraft to feed anything back. Now, I don't know when I would want them to activate. They're not something I'm particularly interested in, frankly. The real aircraft does not provide any feedback or vibration. The Airbus throttles are unusual. Unlike the Boeing ones, they have absolutely no feedback. There's no auto throttle motor that moves that lever around. They just are there, and you move them just like you can this one with no direct feedback. It is a strange thing about the Airbus system, but it works very well. It's a very clever idea because it means that you can turn on and off the auto throttle system very quickly, and you can do that just by bringing it back to idle, for example, and you can override it all very quickly as well. So there you go. So hopefully that's given you a bit of a sense of the actual product. Now let's put it into the simulator, and I'll talk about using it in the sim and how that works. Okay, so here we are now on the flight deck, and I want to show you how this system all works, really. And no surprise, it's as expected. So I've used the SimApp Pro from Winwing, and I've downloaded their profile for this, which is sort of a generic profile. And we're here in the Fenix A320. This is the CFM if it matters. And just to show you, it does pretty much work out of the box. So you do need to do a little bit of tinkering in the app, and it's not the most friendly app I've ever seen, but it does work. And this is the first time I've connected this base pack into the simulator at all, and I'm very pleased that it immediately wakes up and works. And look at that, isn't that great? Now, this is true of all the switches. The rudder trim as well runs, and the reset button drives it back to 0. It's very hard to see that, but it did do it, I promise. If I run that there, just holding it in, and then you can reset it. And the flaps as well. As I set them, it moves. And again, it's great having that lockout mechanism. It's amazing how good that feels and how similar to the real aircraft that is. The lever itself, like I say, not quite the same material, but there we go. So yeah, it can't go through one by accident, which is great. And it does that thing as well where occasionally, let's say I'm going from 1 to 2, I try and lift it, and it actually drives itself forwards on the lockout, and you end up going the wrong direction. So all you do in that case is, now I'm stuck, I can't put it back to 2, so you try again. It just means that as you lifted it, you must have slightly moved it forwards, and the real one does that as well. So yeah, really impressed. Anyway, there we go. The backlighting is meant to be able to be integrated into the switch. As you can see, that is not functioning for me either. So I've reached out to Winwing about two things. I can't get the backlighting or the vibration motors to work. I don't really care about the vibration motors whatsoever, but they're listed as a feature. I have no interest. That the real aircraft does not have any vibration in it, and if it did, I'd be pretty upset. But I can see how for a simulator, maybe it'd be a bit of fun to have it sort of vibrate on touchdown, something like that. A bit of physical feedback to what's going on. But I haven't been able to get that to work using the default profiles. But there's lots and lots of tinkering you can do. So I've used the profile, like I say, from Winwing. However, this is just a control, and you have these axes and switches available to you in the simulator. You can assign them to whatever you fancy. So I've been tinkering around, and you can set them how you want. But with this default profile, I'm really pleased to say things like the engine master switches, if I do that, off it goes. I'll put it back on quickly, might keep the engine running just for the sake of the video. There it goes. No, it did fail. So these switches do actually work. The master ignition works. It's all there. And the speed brake is an interesting one. The speed brake, I was wondering, because of course we have a physical arm position where I can lift that. If I use my left hand, you'll actually be able to see what I'm doing. So the physical switch, you can actually lift up and sort of arm. However, that doesn't do anything in the sim. As far as I can tell, this hardware does not have a separate button for that. It's just sort of a physical action. What actually it does is when it's in this forward position, it activates the switch. So in that forward position, this default profile sets it so that it's arming the speed brake, as you can see there. If I now push down and then move this speed brake lever back, it automatically puts it into the travel position, and there's that detent at halfway, and then the full travel down there. And it's nice friction, really nice friction. I like it a lot. And you can adjust the friction, I believe, on this, that's just like you can all the others. There's little screws in the back there. So yeah, it feels good though. I'd leave it as it is, frankly. But as I move it forwards into the neutral position, you'll see that it actually arms, so it's activating that switch. And I haven't actually armed it with the physical switch, so you can if you'd like, but it doesn't do anything. And I think that's quite a good way around it if you're not going to have the actual switch in there. So if you felt like arming it for takeoff or landing, you can, but it doesn't matter, it's going to work anyway. Maybe it's a little reminder to you that you have armed it anyway. So yeah, there you go, that's pretty neat. The engine masters, as we've seen, work. They lift up and down. The parking brake works, again, lifting up and down. I like it. Getting used to this setup on my desk. There's enough weight because of the metal front half. There's enough weight that this panel doesn't really move. You can just use it on your desk like I am, especially if you install the grippy feet. The only one is the speed brake. If I push this down and I'm not careful, you can see everything moves a little bit. It does work, but it's just gonna be a little bit sensitive with it. The actual throttles though, good news is they work absolutely brilliantly. You can just maneuver those all day long, nothing goes anywhere. And when you have this weight behind it mounted on the desk, I can actually push them all the way through from max reverse to toga. Works just fine. And of course you can calibrate this in your aircraft as well, so you can just go into your simulator and calibrate it, because this is just set up for a generic aeroplane. So the profile I've got it set for, it just commands these things to certain assignments in the simulator. So the reality is you could have this working on other aircraft just fine, but of course it's going to be best in the Airbus. And same for these auto throttle disconnect switches. You can just see that moving, that red button there, and they're really nice. They do have a nice springy action, so they're quite hard to set accidentally. But yeah, backlighting, vibration motors, and this little rudder trim display I have not got working myself yet. More tinkering required, and I've reached out to Winwing as well, but the software will obviously be changed. So but that's where I am at the moment, having used this for the short time I've had it. But yeah, those features don't particularly concern me. I'm here for the actual hardware, and it's amazing how good those throttles feel, how similar to the real thing they managed to get the friction. Also the travel distance, I mean, I don't know if this is 1-for-1, but it's got to be getting close. You can see that the curve of this is not the same as the aircraft. The aircraft's bigger, so I assume the travel's a little less, but yeah, it's still not far off. And then having that weight and those detents is really nice. And then these reversers that you can't lift up in the wrong position, you know, I didn't know the real aircraft would lock them out. Actually, it makes sense it would, but I've never tried, obviously. But yeah, it's great. And something it does that the real aircraft does, I haven't mentioned this already, is that as you try to go forwards, you sort of get stuck here, and you have to keep pushing on them, and it finally clicks through. And if you do it too gently, what some people end up doing is you might need to actually push the reverser levers down yourself, and that's a feature that the real aircraft has. So this mechanism must be very similar to the one in the actual aircraft, because it seems to simulate it remarkably well. And then yeah, you can obviously just remove the detents with a bit of force, but then they're gone, and you can just have a nice smooth throttle. But again, you're not going to do that whilst you've got an Airbus available to you, are you? So there's also these fire lights down here, fire and fault lights, which obviously do light up, but I have not been able to get them to function. So anything where the simulator talks back to the controller, that's been something I've been struggling to get working, so I would need to do some more fiddling. But like I say, the actual controls, which is what I'm more interested in working. But yeah, fire lights, this little screen, and the vibration motors where the simulator talks back to the controller. But yeah, there we go.
Pull up. Terrain.
So to show you some of the sort of complexities of having a controller, again, anyone who buys this, I suspect, will be ready for this sort of thing. But if I load up a new airplane, so I'm in here in the PMG 777-200, and I haven't got any controls assigned, so I need to click on my controller, the throttle quadrant here, and then I'm going to choose airplane controls 32 PAC profile, and it says Fenix because that's the name of the profile I have at the moment. And then if I close that, let's see if this works. There we go. It now does work, but as you can see, it's not great. So you're going to need to tune this to your airplane. there'll be more aircraft supported. I imagine there'll be more profiles uploaded that would resolve this, but as it stands, and you can see things like the speed brake is going a bit mad as it tries to deploy and not. Let me just get rid of those warnings. But yeah, and let's have a look at the flaps. So the flaps do travel, but again, there's different detents amounts. So you can do it, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start setting this up to run on most airplanes. Although a downside of this is this, of course, literally only has 4, 3, 2, 1, and up on the flaps. And I often used to run my flaps on the old Thrustmaster set by just sort of moving it halfway between the positions when I wanted to fly Boeing. So yeah, if I put it there you go, you can see it is an axis, so it does travel, but then it's sort of sitting in between, which is doable, but it's not great. So you might want to set your axes so that those 4 positions actually fit into something useful for you on the aircraft you're flying. Out of interest, the parking brake, let's see if I release that, what happens there. There you go, it's released, it does work. And yeah, let's just try the speed brake. Oh, they've got a bit of power on. So you can see here the axis is all wrong because this is not set up for reverse on the same axis. I don't have that set on my Boeings, so that's why that's running there. So yeah, all I need to do here is just adjust the curves for this specific airplane or create a new profile for it, because the hardware is the hardware, you know, it is there. But yeah, interesting. I don't know what if the master would do the fuel cut-off. No, it's a different thing. So there we go. Lots of work as ever with hardware once you start getting into airplanes, but more and more profiles will become available, I imagine, and I think users can create profiles and put them onto the software, the SimMap Pro software, if you want to do that. Let's try and go forwards a bit. There we go. So here we are, just to prove it works. We're in the Fenix A321 now, and again, all I have to do is go into the settings and select the 32 PAC profile, and then it works with this one as well. So that's good. So overall, what do we think of this? Well, I really like the hardware. The feel of it is really something. It's just that metal construction gives it that weight, and that does allow you to use it freestanding on the desk, no issue. And like I say, including with these throttles, you can sort of treat them a little more aggressively without worrying about it sliding around the desk. So I do like that a lot. Also, the function of the flap lever and the speed brake lever is really remarkable. I would have preferred if lifting it up activated the switch rather than just having it fully forwards, automatically activating it. But it's a small price to pay. It doesn't functionally change anything, and it's something I'll play around with the Boeings as well. I like, of course, that you can use this with any aircraft, but you'd expect that for hardware. That should be possible. But yeah, it is slightly more limited than worse hardware, if that makes sense, because this is so specific for the Airbus. It's actually really good, but the result is it means that things like I say, running the flaps at half detents is not really practical in this. It could just snap at any moment, so I'm going to have to figure that one out. Maybe I'll assign a little flap button on something else. But for when you're flying the Airbus, absolutely brilliant. It's just great. And to have that lockout where you can't go through, I know I've mentioned it a million times now, but I'm so impressed with it. Same with the engine master switches. I always liked starting the engines on the Airbus. It was always quite a good moment to me of the day when you go click to ignition and then master switch on. It was quite exciting, you know. You knew the event was beginning and the engines would spool up and the air conditioning packs turn off, and it's nice to see that sort of recreated here with these. These feel great. The shape of these is amazing, and having that proper action on the switch is really very good. Same for the throttles. These are to me the absolute standout feature is the friction on these throttles and the detents. Both the friction and the detents feel absolutely brilliant, way better than I imagined they would. It's remarkable actually how good they are. Same for the reverse levers. They're actually the right size now, and they just work, like I say, exactly like I expect from the aircraft, and they have the same little funny mannerisms of the aircraft. Now don't get me wrong, this doesn't feel identical. The material, in particular the plastics used, are not the same as the aircraft, but I mean, you're not going to know that unless you've spent a long time using the ones in the actual aircraft. They do feel a little bit lighter in places, and then there's like different, you've got shiny glossy textures and then matte texture around the side, but the actual movement is remarkable. It's absolutely brilliant, and I would quite like hand flying this airplane without auto throttle now using this system. I think that would be great. And same for landing. It's super satisfying to touch down and then be able to deploy the reversers, just those big levers with that correct amount of friction. Absolutely brilliant. And then to have a single switch to remove the detents from the top end is brilliant. What a great idea. So you can use them for whatever you fancy. But if you're using this as an Airbus, fantastic. I like the backlighting. It's the right color. I love this sort of warm color. I've got it set to full brightness here, and you can see it does light up very nicely, so you can see it even in the daylight, but you can adjust that. A shame I couldn't get it working through the aircraft switches, but frankly, it might be more of a nuisance than it's worth. It might be a little bit better just having it set up at a standard brightness. And same for this little screen and the vibration motors, things that I need to try keep working on in the future, see if I can get those to work. But as it stands, this is the sort of thing I like to see, and just I can't compliment enough the action on these throttles. These feel really nice. I don't foresee anyone having too many complaints about that. Certainly I don't, but it's all going to be opinion. People are going to want different things from their controllers, and they might not like flexibility and so on. The only switch I don't particularly like is this little ignition start switch. So although I say I like being able to turn it on and do the masters are good size and feel, and when you move them, the action on them is nice and clunky. This switch just feels a little bit cheap, and I don't know why it has a clicky option. The real one, of course, does not. So it doesn't need that. I like as well that the design that you can fit it onto the side of your desk like this. Like I say, I think that's just convenient, because we're not all going to set up home cockpits. I'm certainly not. I fly too many different airplanes in the simulator and on my channel, so I can't get away with having lots of one specific hardware setup. But there we go. So overall, great action. Really like the throttles. Great to see these switches behave properly. I think some of the material, by the way, also on this parking brake, this is not quite as nice as some of the other switches as well. It's a little bit lighter, does feel a little bit like it's at risk there of snapping off if I was to brush past it. I haven't seen any evidence of that, but it just feels a little more at risk. But it does function correctly, and it does lift up and twist, which is really nice. So it's funny, like you've got such great throttles, engine masters, flap lever's nice, and even the speed brake lever's really nice. You can see there's actually metal down in that underneath it, so that gives it that strength. And then you've got things like the park brake in this little switch here, just a little bit cheaper. This reset, or cheaper feeling, I should say. This reset button is really nice though. Proper deep springy action required on that. And same on the auto throttle disconnects. These feel really good. These red buttons on the side here, they work very nicely. But overall, it looks great. It feels great where it counts, particularly on the throttles, and just a few bits of the software I need to work on. And I think it'd be very hard to say that this is not a very impressive product all round. It does also come with some panels to connect to the side here, so you can actually, if you wanted to fit these not screwed onto your setup here, but you wanted to fit them into your own cockpit, there's some panels that you can use instead of this to sort of cover it like it looks on the real aircraft. It's hard for me to describe. What I mean is you get this panel and this panel here if you wanted to actually fit these into a frame and you're going to do it properly, which of course, like I say, I am not going to do. I must also praise the level of detail they've gone to. If we look into the cockpit here, you can see that there's 3 screws, 1, 2, 3, and if I bring it up on camera, I can't quite show you that, but there's 1, 2, 3. You can just about see them there. 3 screws running along the bottom there. So yeah, what is a shame is this little guard would have been the extra level of detail if they had modelled. Let me get up the screen for you. They'd modelled this guard here, but yeah, these 3 screws are there. I mean, it's quite something. And then they've also got the screws inset here into the side of the master panel, which they are here as well, on, off, and then in fault light 1, 2. So it's just quite something. They've really gone to an extra level to get all this spot on. Yeah, amazing. While we're here, we can also see the throttle markings. So on the simulator, you can see them there, and you'll see that they do tie up. They match exactly with what I've got sitting on the front of me as well. Auto throttle, 0, climb, flex MCT, toga. The reason it says auto throttle here on this side is, it says it on both sides, it's just meaning this is the range the auto throttle operates in. So it doesn't operate at 0. When you bring them back to 0, that's it. It cancels it. But in this range, the auto throttle is able. So if I was to put them there, the auto throttle system can work, but it can only work up to that point, up to this limiter. I'm effectively limiting it to 50% or whatever. If I set it to climb, then that's the new limit, and the auto throttle can engage. Once you go above climb, you're now forcing it. So I'm demanding flex, I'm demanding toga, or anything in between. So yeah, so that's why it's done like that. I would love, by the way, to see a trim wheel put into a simulator. Put into some hardware. It's one of the most satisfying things on the Airbus. I absolutely love the trim wheel. It feels really sort of smooth, tactile. It makes a nice sort of clicky noise as it spins. It's great. Really great. That's all then. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again in another video or live stream soon on the channel. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.